Hey, what's up, everyone? Thanks for joining us today for the 1004 show. It's episode 52, and we got David LeBoeuf from the Initiative for a Competitive Inner City up in the Boston, Massachusetts area. They head up and help with the outreach of Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Program. It's a really cool program for growing businesses that have about six figures in revenues, a couple of employees, and are looking to grow. In this program, they help you guys, business owners, really focus on working on the business instead of in the business. And I talked to David about some of the challenges that they've had, even as a big business, to work on outreach and ways that you can leverage your alumni to get new business. So this is episode 52 of the 1004 show with David LeBoeuf from the Initiative for a Competitive Inner City. If you guys love what you're watching, love what you're listening to, give it a download, a subscribe, a like, and share it with your friends. But let's get into this episode. All right, David, appreciate your time today. You are an associate for the Initiative for a Competitive Inner City, and you guys do the outreach for Goldman Sachs's 10,000 small businesses. Appreciate your time today.
Great. No, thank you, Zach. It's wonderful to be here and to be, educating people about our program and how they can benefit.
Absolutely. So tell me a little bit about 10,000 small businesses.
Sure. So 10,000 Small Businesses is a public-private partnership between the Goldman Sachs Foundation. We have 14 local sites at different community colleges across the country. But we also have a version of the program that's accessible to business owners that don't live within the vicinity of those community colleges, and that's our National Blended Program. That program is taught half of the time online, and the other half of the program is actually taught at Babson College, which is in Wellesley, Massachusetts. And Babson College is our national education partner on the program. The great thing about this opportunity is that it's completely scholarship-based. There's no cost at all for business owners to participate. And for those that would be going through our national cohort, all of the accommodations and flights to Babson are covered by the program. So again, other than the time investment to be successful and to improve your business, there's no cost at all to participate.
That's a heck of a deal. People that are interested, they can go to 10ksbapply.com. So public-private, who are some of the parties involved in that?
Sure. So, obviously the Goldman Sachs Foundation, Babson College, my organization, which is actually a nonprofit based out of Boston, Massachusetts, Initiative for a Competitive Inner City. Our organization was founded by Michael Porter, who's a Harvard Business School professor, and he, recognized the competitiveness of inner cities. We have a research and advisory practice, and we also have other small business development programs, including the Inner City Capital Connections program, the Inner City 100 program, and then we launched a new program in the Boston area with Santander. You can find more about all of those programs and the requirements at ICIC.org. So we handle the outreach and the recruitment. We also, at the 14 different sites, there are different community college partners. So for example, in New York City, there's LaGuardia Community College, Houston is Houston Community College, Delgado is New Orleans, in the New Orleans area. And we actually recently launched a program in Baltimore that has a variety of institutions that we're working with that are for businesses in Maryland. And all of that information is also on our website, and it's the same application process for each of the programs.
Very cool. Why should someone apply to something like this?
Sure. So the best way to really describe this program is imagine that you're taking a crash course MBA, but you're focusing on one case study, and that case study is your own business. It's really designed for business owners who, have been working in the business, but really haven't had the opportunity to work on the business and to basically take their creation to the level that they want it to. In addition to, being in a classroom with business owners from, potentially if you're in the national program from all over the country, you have an opportunity to really go through a curriculum that will give you skills that you can implement immediately. And to just show you or to talk to you about some of the results, within 18 months of graduating from our program, we found out that 56% of our businesses have added new jobs and 76% of our businesses have generated new revenue. So those are some really exciting numbers. Definitely our alums Once they learn these skills and apply them, they've been able to outpace the growth that we see nationally, that the Small Business Administration has reported. And so if you are focused on really growing your business in a way that has a positive impact in our community, this is definitely the program for you.
I think one of the challenges with an MBA or any type of education is it's theory based, and you're not actually being able to place it on your own business. So it's nice to hear that it's not only a crash course into getting that information, but you're able to use it on your own business. Mm-hmm. What type of businesses are you guys taking throughout this whole process?
Sure. So really, we have some basic criteria, and some markets have a little bit of different criteria. So if you would go to, if you live within the vicinity of one of the local sites, which are all on our website, I would go to the individual website first to check the criteria. But on average, we look for businesses that have been in operation for at least 2 years, have a minimum of 4 employees. They don't necessarily have to all be full-time, and have approximately $150,000 in revenue. And again, there are some other markets, including Rhode Island, Detroit, and Baltimore, that have different criteria. So I would check the website if you're in those areas. In regards to industry, we've had very, very diverse businesses. We've had restaurants, retail stores, law firms, IT consulting, biotech companies, government contractors, really any manufacturing companies, any type of business that has a desire to grow and is willing in their plan for growth includes adding jobs and really innovating to go to the next level. That's the type of person that we're looking for to be in our program.
Entrepreneurship, being a business owner, is something that's become very popular, not only from people starting a business, but also in a lot of communities and cities. And it's an economic development strategy for a lot of people. From a Goldman Sachs perspective or from an ICIC perspective, why is something like this important to work on?
Sure, that's fantastic. So I'll first go through kind of how the Goldman Sachs Foundation came into doing this, and I'll talk about definitely how ICIC became a part of this program. So the Goldman Sachs Foundation started an effort internationally known as 10,000 Women, which was to help out female entrepreneurs in developing countries. That was so successful that the foundation board wanted to do something domestically in the U.S. In looking at the way our economy is, essentially the growth in our economy, I believe it's around 80% of all businesses in this country are small businesses. And so this was a place that the foundation felt they could be effective and really change. You're adding 3 or 4 jobs at one business in a community makes a significant difference. And to multiply that across 10,000 businesses across the country, it's an amazing impact for improving the quality of life. From ICIC's perspective, we recognize that by providing the tools and education and access necessary to business owners, this program works with inner city businesses, but we also work with rural businesses within every market, even in the U.S. territories and island economies. We've worked with businesses that having that education and those tools to really level that playing field and to bring that access will really change lives in some of the places that need the most support, and recognizing that there is a way that the private sector can be involved in this process.
I love how you guys are talking about just making a couple of small impacts in a lot of businesses. It's a lot of the theory that we think of. 1004, from a numbers perspective, you're on the 1004 show. The numbers are, help 1,000 businesses get to 4 employees. Some of them might be at 2, get to 4. Some of them might be at 4, get to 8. Maybe those move on to 20 and 40 and 60. So I love that just from a small incremental piece, being able to get to that is something that's really important. How you guys do cohorts that are both in person and online. How did you guys understand that maybe a hybrid of that was a good approach?
Sure. So for the local markets, for the 14 local markets, we offer 3 cohorts a year. And those typically have a classroom of between 30 to 40 students at a time. Really, the hybrid version came because we just recognized that there was a demand in markets that weren't accessible to some of these locations. So, for example, if there's a business, if there's a business in Virginia, prior to the Baltimore program, which is a special session just for Maryland businesses, the closest site was Philadelphia, which may not be accessible depending on what part of the state. you're located in. Or if there's a business in Montana, really their choices out there were Salt Lake City or Los Angeles, which clearly are nowhere near where that state is located. So that was a way to really bring opportunity and share this program with businesses across the country. So logistically, it made the most sense to have that hybrid model. And the curriculum is actually the exact same. We use web conferencing software for the classroom where the students are actually engaging with their professor in real time. You're spending the same amount of hours, and it's the exact same quality of instruction because many of the professors who are teaching through the online version are also faculty at the on-site versions too.
Tell me a little bit about the curriculum. What type of things? An MBA is pretty much the same 6 to 8 topics over and over again, but what are some of the things that are in your curriculum?
Sure. So to give you a perspective, the outcome of this program is the development of a 5-year growth plan, which is different from a business plan in that it's really both strategic but also tactical. These are the things that have to happen in the next 6 months to get to where that business owner wants to go. And the growth plan can really be anything that business owner desires. It could be opening up a second location, adding a new product. It could be a family transition plan if it's a family-owned business. We have a lot of our curriculum focuses on financials by examining your financial statements, how are the finances constructed, developing some metrics, and how to forecast your growth. Marketing is a common concern that we hear from a lot of people, understanding that and implementing that. Furthermore, hiring the right employees, and looking at HR related concerns. We have legal clinics, we have HR clinics and negotiation skills. And then also looking at one's own leadership style and also examining organizational processes. And again, the great thing about this curriculum is that by using your own business, you essentially are able to implement some of these changes in real time. So that the very next day after you're attending the webinar or when you return back from class, you could be sitting down with your employees and saying, let's look at this strategy. How are we going to update it for the next quarter?
Actually, I have a friend and a customer who's gone through it, Tracy Link from Integrity Security in Portsmouth, Virginia. She loves it. It's if you ever been to a conference and the couple of days after the conference where you just have this feeling of just excitement and joy, and so every time she would come back from Babson, she would have that feeling, and she would call me and tell me how great it is. Why the 5-year growth plan?
Sure. I think that's something that, given the metrics that you're able to assess from your finances, that it's feasible, and it's something that we have to think long term. Obviously there are immediate challenges within the years, but 5 years is essentially a place that you can have. At least our professors have found that you can make those significant changes and find those opportunities. And that growth plan also has ways for self-evaluation to determine, do you need to make adjustments if possible. So it's a good time period where you can kind of see the patterns. At least that's what the research from the faculty over at Babson has shown.
Very cool. So you are part of the outreach team.
Mm-hmm.
When you guys are looking, what does that outreach look like? How do you guys communicate with people? What is kind of your approach that seems to work the best? And what are some of the outreach processes that haven't worked very well for you guys?
Sure. So one of the things that we do, which works the best for us, is we obviously go through our alumni. Our alumni, know the type of business owner, know the amount of effort that it can take, and so they will definitely be able to be our best evangelists in the program. We also work through different organizational partners. I can think of, for example, and why this is on the top of my head, is I'm going down to the Small Business Development Center conference in Nashville next week. And so small business development centers are forward-facing with clients that are looking to grow or already seeking out support. And so this is a way to leverage those additional resources from there. We also will do some email campaigns when we receive nominations from other community organizations, and also online informational webinars. Those have been the most effective for us. I think, again, market to market, it changes, and really where we found that we've had the most success is when we build strong relationships in a state or in a local market and have some local validators, because obviously, when you get information like this, you might say, this is too good to be true. And I often, have to answer phone calls and we say, no, you're right. It does sound too good to be true. But, there are hundreds of, business owners that have been through that. I'd be happy to connect you with someone who can tell you that this is the real deal.
Yeah, I remember when I first heard about it, I also thought the same thing. How many of the 10,000 have been filled?
Sure. So we are approximately around 8,000 businesses that have gone through the program, and so we're continuing outreach and continuing to, spread this opportunity out to, more and more small businesses in our country.
On the webinar side, when you guys would do those, and then you would kind of upsell at the end, what type of material would you be talking about on that webinars? Would it be just like, hey, here's how you sign up and this is the process, or would you guys do some sort of educational piece first and then at the end say, hey, we also have this program?
Sure, that's a great question. So for the we at the local sites, there are different opportunities for engagement with different organizations, and so some of them do have that hybrid model. What we typically do for outreach nationally, because we have to do almost all of it exclusively online, is we have two different sets of webinars. One is simply to go through the application process, but also to talk about the results and to give you an insight into what the curriculum is and what the benefits are. So we won't necessarily be teaching a module, but we'll be explaining in detail, what does the curriculum look like? What does that growth plan look like? We oftentimes have alumni on those calls that will, talk about their personal experiences, and then we obviously and we walk them through the application process and have question and answer sessions. If individuals apply and they become finalists, there's a second part of the application, and so we actually host webinars that go through that second part of the application, telling them, what are the questions looking for, what documents, verification documents do we need to move forward, and then all of our applicants are our finalists are interviewed before they're admitted into the program, and then so talking about that interview process and what they should be aware of.
What does the business future look like to you guys, right? So you're starting to see a lot of people focus a lot on technology. Are you guys seeing that you guys are starting to jump on board and focus on technology as something that a lot of people need to look at, or do you think we're still kind of many, many years away from there? What's the future of business look like to you?
That's a great question. We have been seeing an increase in technology-related firms that have been applying for our program, and also individuals who may be in a type of business that especially kind of the longer tenured businesses, that they have been having processes that worked well in 1970 or 1960 and have kind of been coasting for a while just because of their reputation, but really recognize that if I'm passing this on to the next generation, or I'm the next generation taking over, I have to really radically change this to meet the new market demands, because we've been at the same level for quite a long period of time. So our faculty and also our business owners are assigned business advisors if they're accepted into the program, and so our advisors are very much aware of those trends. We're also seeing a lot of increase in the healthcare field. That's an emerging market and a lot of opportunities. But, again, we're still seeing, those, what I guess I would consider more traditional brick and mortar businesses that have a strong impact in their community and, really have a potential. Manufacturing is another field that's changing significantly. Technology is changing it, and helping those businesses look at the ways that they can still maintain their core values and their core processes while adopting to the changing economy.
How do you guys have that conversation with someone that has coasted by, that might be making hundreds of thousands, maybe seven figures in business a year annually, your traditional brick and mortar, maybe it's a mom and pop shop? How do you have those conversations with people to say, hey, it did work for a while, but if you do want this to succeed for the next 2, 3, 4 decades, how do you convince them that maybe this new age is something they need to introduce into their businesses?
Sure. So I think it goes in a couple of ways. I think part of it is that obviously those types of businesses that are applying to our program, I think they recognize that they need some support and they need some resources. So there is a little bit of a self-selection bias that at least that seed's been planted at some point in time, or they've had a conversation with someone. And then I think also talking about just the growth of our alumni and what what they've seen after completing the program, and then relaying it back to where they've been, and having them imagine themselves in those shoes of that alum. And then our business advisors are really the ones that, if the business is accepted, and we do ask about these trends and the motivations for applying to the program and why they're interested during the interview process. But those business advisors really, build a strong relationship with that owner and will give, the feedback that they need to really say, look, when they're doing the financial forecasting models, there's some quantitative data, and then that business advisor can help interpret that quantitative data with the qualitative context that business has.
You've talked a lot about using the alumni, leveraging them. It's really word of mouth. That's something that I think is very difficult to do, even if you have a great product. But having 8,000 people go through the program, that's definitely success. How do you use word of mouth, or how do you ask for word of mouth, I guess, from your alum?
Sure. So I think part of it really is, knowing I think part of it is the way that the program, we continue to engage our alumni after in a variety of different efforts. There's a continuing alumni program. We do different webinars to kind of introduce them to new opportunities. At the local sites, they often have alumni gatherings on a semi-annual basis that may have a education clinic or a speakers panel or different things like that. So we're continuing to engage our alumni after they graduate. It's not that we simply just kind of, leave them off and say, go, spread your wings and fly. We definitely keep up with them. And, for example, I've got some alumni joining me at the Nashville conference. And it's through that continued engagement and also obviously the belief, as you said with your colleague, Tracy, about the program, just that passion from it, but also our continued engagement. Really, it builds a relationship with our alumni, that it's less of a transactional relationship and more of a partnership model.
How do you understand that even though you have customers, they keep coming back, you have alumni that's going well, how do you understand that the product or the company or the service that you're selling or even providing for free through scholarships doesn't suck? Right? How do you track to make sure that what you're providing to people is something that is going to be of value for a long time?
That's a great question. So we actually publish a impact report every year of the program, and how that impact report is derived is we administer 3 surveys, our M&E diagnostics after to our graduates. One that's 16 months out, 18 months out, and 30 months out from graduation. And so by completing that and having that M&E process, we're able to see both quantitatively and qualitatively, is the program accomplishing the objectives? And so that's where, I was able to, when I go out, I can tell people, within, 18 months, we've seen 56% of our business owners add new jobs and 76% add new revenue. 99% of individuals who are accepted into the program graduate. And then another great thing is 84% of our businesses do business with one another once they've completed the program. So just those, so we do have a process, and then, that's something, I think those numbers speak for themselves. But then again, those qualitative stories of our alums that talk about their personal experience of how it changed their business in their community and their outlook, I think that combination is really what allows us to essentially spread the word about this great opportunity.
I love that, really having qualitative with quantitative in there to really tell that story. If someone was on the fence about applying, what would you tell them?
Well, definitely what I would tell them first is that it is something that will change their life and change their outlook. That's really what our alumni say, is that lots of times our alums are there's kind of a couple of different profiles. We often find the accidental entrepreneur who's just very passionate about a product or a service, but they've never run a business. You can always see like a lawyer or a dentist as a stereotypical example of that. Or just because of circumstance, they're working too much in the business and the business is running them. They need to be able to take the opportunity to work on the business rather than being so entrenched in the business, so that they can see it grow the way that they want it to do. And once that mindset is changed, it opens up a whole new world of opportunities just for that business owners, not just the company, but also their personal life. in how they work, in their opportunity to be more involved in the community, being more involved with their family, and seek larger opportunities that when they first started the company they never even thought were possible. So that's what I would kind of frame it as. And again, as the best, our best evangelists are alum. So I would always say, if you're having doubts or want to learn more, I would try to find someone that's in a similar industry or a similar market, and make sure that they were connected.
An accidental entrepreneur is someone who fell into an opportunity and then ended up was good at a craft. If you ever read the E-Myth Revisited, they talk about a lot of entrepreneurs that are good at a craft but might not be good at business. And so really the accidental entrepreneur, is that in your case?
Yes. Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, we see many of those that, they started, it could be a food product that they were making because they were just passionate about it, or it was something that wasn't in the market, and then they just started expanding rapidly. Or someone who could be, someone, especially in the healthcare field, we see a lot of people who go into their business because it's a particular training, but they don't know how to run a business. They know how to provide a good substance abuse recovery service, but they don't know how to actually run a business. And so it really meets, the great way is this curriculum meets multiple audiences because of the pragmatic nature of it.
With a lot of qualitative and quantitative data that you guys have, how do you take that and put it into your marketing, putting it into your collateral to then get the success, the results of getting your next wave of business owners into the program?
Sure. So I think the two major ways that we publicize our impact is obviously we have those numbers. I think, and visually, showing those numbers in some graphic ways to show the charts is in comparing it to the standard rate of growth in the U.S. Definitely is one big thing, but also really having the alumni quotes and alumni stories. And realizing that these aren't, these businesses are real people, and so having those individuals talk about their own success and seeing that in their own change. Someone looking at that photo and reading that story of, this person who is in a food-based business or runs a construction company, and you yourself are in a similar position, you can see it and say, this could be me, or this is the challenge I'm dealing with. And hearing, from where I was before the program to where I am after. And that's something that is, if that business owner conceptualizes themselves in the shoes of one of our alums, we found that to be very effective. And the other thing is just giving a space to answer questions. Lots of times, they're depending on where the individual is or their experience, there may not be a lot of business support services out there, or this may be their, or they may have had experiences with different other types of programs that really wasn't meeting what they were. And so that's what we want to do, is we want to be upfront about what our program does. What are you looking out of the program? And this is what we can provide. If we can't provide that, here are other services out there that would meet your needs better.
I love that you said leveraging kind of the construction worker, the beautician who gets a quote from someone and they can put their mind into that person and say, oh, yeah, that could be me. And that's something that we use from our testimonials, from my business perspective. And it's impactful because you're talking directly to those target customers, and it can be very powerful. My last question for you, it's 2017. Will the New England Patriots win the Super Bowl this year?
Of course, as always. They always know how to pull out a win, and definitely in our mind over here in Boston, the Patriots are going to win every Super Bowl through 2021. So
there you go. Actually, on that same lines, so food, culture, sports, they're all really good to a community. Mm-hmm. How have you seen stuff like that in Boston help build up the business community?
That's a great question. I mean, Boston always has a great history. So that's something that, the great historical traditions, but also we have a tradition of neighborhoods. In Boston, they're a very distinct section of the city that have kind of their own flair and their own style. And so a lot of the small businesses around there embrace that. For example, where our office is located is in Roxbury, Massachusetts, which is a historically African-American neighborhood. It's right in the inner city. We have a lot of businesses that provide certain cultural products, but also are really embracing the architecture of the neighborhood, are hosting community events that are promoting the well-being of the neighborhood and talking about issues that are affecting the neighborhood. So really, small businesses play a vital space in community development. Essentially, economic development and community development are one and the same, and at least in my perspective.
And I think we're starting to see an even bigger trend into that moving forward into the next decades, if you will. So, David, I appreciate your time today. You guys can check out the 10,000 Small Businesses at 10ksbapply.com. David LeBoeuf, appreciate your time, and go Patriots.
Yes, absolutely. All right. Thanks, Zach. And great
Thank you.
talking with you.
Absolutely.